Good evening. I'd like to call the July 28th meeting of the Sebastian City Council to order, please. Would you stand for the invocation by Father Dave and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember McPartland?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City. Let us pray. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we thank you for the men and women who serve our community. We thank you for the staff here in the city. We thank you for our council members who serve us so well. We thank you for our public who takes good care of our community and speaks when they need to speak. So, Lord, we ask now that you would bless this meeting, continue to pour out your wisdom upon us that we may speak with grace. And Lord, we just ask that you would continue to bless our community, to keep it the way that it is, and to always remind us that we are a family in this community. We pray these things in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's have a roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd.
Did you call me?
Uh-huh.
Yes, here.
You're first. Vice Mayor Hill.
Changing my ears out.
Okay. Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember McPartland.
Here.
Councilmember Nunn.
Yes, here.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, are there any agenda modifications that anyone would like to make? Seeing none, then by unanimous consent, we'll approve the agenda for this evening. We now have actually a series of 3 presentations this evening. They're all going to be very informative, I believe. The first of those is a presentation by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, Stephanie Hike, who's the Economic Development and Intergovernment Programs Director. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you for seeing my title. I always trip over that one. So, thank you for having us here today. This started out to inform you about an economic development initiative we're doing to provide, to figure out where there are gaps in access to capital for our small businesses. I think with COVID, we found that there were a lot of businesses who weren't able to get help. So what we have done is we've conducted a business survey online. We've had over 200 responses to that. And then we're also now working with the lenders to find out so we can mesh in what are the needs of the businesses, to mesh in what's available from the lenders, and then figure out where do we fill those gaps. So whether it be a CDFI, a revolving loan fund, whatever we need to kind of just supplement the funding that we have for our small businesses. So that's one initiative we're working on. I also want to note that the Economic Development Administration just released their Notice of Funding Opportunity last week for their American Rescue Plan dollars. That won't be what's coming to you as a municipality, but things that you can put in for grants. So there's several programs they have. Next Tuesday the 3rd, in your packet there, I've included a little invitation into the agenda. EDA and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, who serves as the Economic Development District for the 4 counties from Indian River to Palm Beach County. We are putting this on to kind of explain to everybody what we do, what our role is in helping you. We can help write grants. We can help find grants. We do that for our economic development agencies. We also do it for our local governments. And then we also, we have what is known as the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Plan, which I've given everybody a copy of that also. That's our regional plan that is our regional collaborative plan for how do we do our economic development initiatives as a region, the things that we work on to become that vibrant, brilliant, innovative region that we need to be. So on that, there is a SEDS committee. Those are appointees from the 4 counties. Now, the boards of county commissioners appoint people, and I just wanted to let everybody know we do have 2 empty positions on that committee for Indian River County. So if you know someone that you'd like to appoint to that, or there's someone maybe on the city staff, please let me know. We can talk to them, and then we'll talk with the commissioners to get some of those positions appointed, because I really like to have the equal representation around our 4 counties. What else did I provide you? Also, you may not be aware, we do COVID assistance. EDA has tasked us as the Economic Development District to, we hired someone and we're doing plans, initiatives. We set up a task force, which we are also asking if anybody would like to volunteer for that, to just look at the different things that's happened with COVID. We've done business surveys for that also, to find out what happened to businesses. And it's funny to see that some of those businesses actually thrive during COVID. So it's kind of a good report. We have that on our website, but if anybody's interested in serving on that task force, we're just trying to do collaboration. And then we will be writing a piece to our SEDS plan that will go into that from that task force. And then finally, the SEDS plan, it has to be rewritten every 5 years. So as being part of that SEDS committee, what we will do next year, because next year is when it's due, we will have a regional summit. So we'll be reaching out to everyone, to elected officials, to planning staffs, to county and municipal leaders and citizens to join in that effort also. So that's something that will be coming up at the beginning of next year so that we can put that together and then get the SEDS plan put together with the SEDS committee. So I think that's all I have for tonight. Do we have any questions or?
Thank you.
No?
I will urge all the businesses in Sebastian to go to tcrpc.org and fill out the survey. The outcomes of that survey by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is probably going to be used by a lot of organizations on deciding how to spend money. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for organizations to use federal money to solve problems.
Right.
Because they're making it available. So.
Right.
Please go out and do that if you're a business owner in Sebastian.
Right. Or just call us because they do fund us to be your technical assistance people. So we're there to help anybody in the region. So,
good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, now the Indian River County Veterans Council is going to do a presentation. Since Marty's not here, I'm not sure who's going to. You.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm Jim Romanek. I'm the Executive Director for the Veterans Council of Indian River County. First off, again, I'd like to say thank you, and I invite the City of Sebastian residents to come on by and visit the veteran parking signs that were just installed and unveiled this evening. And this council is very gracious, and I'm honored to say that what you do for your veterans in this community, and not just in the city, but anybody that visits here, hopefully they'll make use of those parking spots that we have now for veterans. When I was here last time, we didn't have much time to talk, but I want to go over one of our major programs, since it may take just a few minutes, and that's one of them that's been providing a lot of emergency basic living financial support to qualified honorable discharge veterans. And that's our program, and their families, and that's our program called the acronym is UAV, or what we call Upward American Veterans. Since the inception back in 2012, we helped over 756 veterans and their families and expensed over $300,000 just for direct emergency aid. During COVID, I want to say that one of the things that we were proud of, that we never shut our doors on our veterans and our families. We stayed open. Whether it was me running out in the parking lot looking like a nuclear waste biologist with my PPP gear on and all that stuff, and still taking care of veterans that were at that time out of work because of COVID. We don't know what to expect now with this new variant coming on, but I do want to let the veterans in the City of Sebastian and Indian River County and Fellsmere, wherever you're at, that the Veterans Council has money. We've received quite a few grants this year, and to help veterans that are either needing emergency direct aid or needing help with refurbing your home to convert maybe your bathrooms into a zero entry bathroom if now you became disabled. And we don't require any payback. This is a service that we offer to our gracious community leaders and organizations and donors that we receive these funds, and we want to make good use of them. So I just wanted to put that out there. The other thing too is that, you know, as I mentioned about COVID, we want to make sure that people know that we are here for them, especially the veterans. And that's one of our biggest things. Everybody knows who we are. You know, we're the veterans of Indian River County, but they don't know what we do. So that is one of our major things. We offer 6 other programs. One's called Veterans Helping Veterans. That's our construction rehab. We offer the transportation services. And that's only to West Palm Beach, because that's our region that the VA allows us only to transport to, and locals, but it doesn't matter where you live in the county. We'll come pick you up at your house and take you to a local doctor or the local CBOC. And we have helped over 10,000 veterans in the last 5 years alone, just doing that service. So, Mayor, I hope to come back at another time and go through another program. I don't want to take up the council, but I do want to tell you a short story. Just recently this year, we had a veteran who was transporting his wife to and from Orlando for cancer treatments. So he didn't have enough money to pay for his water bill. So reluctantly, his water got turned off. Sorry to say, it was turned off for 2 years. 2 years, a veteran went without water. His hot water heater fried because he didn't realize his water was turned off. He had no washer or dryer. He had no water to bathe in. One of his neighbors saw him in a shopping cart going to Cumberland Farms with 5-gallon jugs to fill them up for water. Come to know, he became his friend, got to know a little bit about him, found out he was a veteran. The neighbor called us, and we took care of that veteran. You couldn't talk about a more gracious, it gives me goose pimples to talk about a more gracious family for what we did. But that was a veteran that, can you believe it, going 2 years without water. We have a lot of veterans that go without air conditioning in this area. I mean, for a long time. We had a veteran whose septic tank dropped during Hurricane Irma and had to take his waste to the county facility in a 5-gallon bucket because he didn't have the money to support his sewer system and raise his tank back up. But we got word and we helped him. So those are the things we do. That's what we want to do. We want to be a service to our veterans at no cost. So thank you again, council members, and thank you for having us here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a question too.
I think if I could, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
So
Any questions?
I do want to ask a question, and hopefully my understanding is correct. You only had to be an honorably discharged veteran. You don't have to be a retiree, a disabled vet. You serve every veteran, honorably discharged veteran, whether you've served 2 years or 30 years, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
If you served 2 weeks and for some reason you had to get out under an honorable discharge or, 48 hours, as long as you have an honorable discharge, DD Form 214, that's all that qualifies you, and you're not a millionaire.
Any amount of service is service to your country, and that's nice. If people know
correct.
people, please contact you. Thank you.
Absolutely. If you know anybody, we're, like I said, even though our office is based down in Vero, that's just where we have an office. That's not where we serve. We serve the whole county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just one, briefly. I understand what the Veterans Council do for veterans in the county, but how do they go out and reach the homeless veterans in our community? What is done to reach those members?
Well, we work with the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Organization, and they do they go out into the camps and find out how many, they do a survey to find out how many homeless veterans. It's a little bit different when it comes to homeless veterans because a lot of times those guys can't produce a DD Form 214. So we don't know if they're really a veteran or not to call anybody a liar, but that's just the way our policies are, is that you have to somehow either go into the VSO office, which is free. You could go in there and ask to see if they can run a copy of your DD Form 214, and then we'll do whatever we have to. But I'll tell you another quick story that happened here in Sebastian. There was a homeless guy sleeping in his car here at one of your hotels. A sheriff came by, found him. We put him up for 2 nights until he got settled and we figured out what he needed. So there are ways to do that. We were able to work with the VSO office here in the county. They were able to verify that he was a honorably discharged veteran. So we try to do our best to find out for sure, what we can do if, when he says, I'm a veteran, I need help. And even if they don't have the form, we do our best to try to take care of them.
Right, that was my concern is, were you guys going out and reaching out to the homeless in the camps? Because we have a lot of homeless veterans around this state and throughout the country, so that don't have the documents and they need help to get those so that they can get the services that you all provide for them.
Yeah, we collaborate with a lot of organizations, and there's a guy that used to work with the TCH, and now he's working with Post 40 out of Fort Pierce. His name's Jim Burke. He's kind of been my eyes and ears in the field. He knows, he goes into camp, so he knows. He comes And if people need food or whatever, he comes and sees me, or there's other organizations, and he feeds them, he takes care of them with whatever resources he gets. But absolutely, we are here to help them. And again, if you know any of them, have them call us, 772-410-5820, or we're on the website. You look us up on our web, www.veteranscouncilirc.org.
Yes, sir. Thank you for all your work you do, and we appreciate it as veterans ourselves. I know I can speak for myself that we really appreciate everything that you all do for our veterans. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
and thank you. I know you all are veterans, so thank you for your service
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
They do work very closely with the Treasure Coast Homeless Service Council. And when we do it, it's the one time a year, the point in time count. And when we go out and we count the homeless, it's like a magic pill if they are a veteran. And they have a couple of guys, Vic Diaz still there.
Yes,
He
sir.
goes in the woods looking for them, and if they don't have the paperwork, he will assist them in getting the
All
paperwork.
right, good.
Yeah. And we also are very active with the Veterans Court, and we help veterans if they're in trouble with that too.
Good.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, now we're going to have a presentation by the Children's Trust of Indian River County. Lisa Kyle, I think, is going to be the coordinator, but I believe there's going to be multiple people presenting. Is that correct? Okay.
We're a team.
And use that microphone right there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will, just to give you hope, that my part is brief, but and it's also the least interesting part, so don't lose hope. It's just, I think, a necessary overview of kind of the history and process that brought us here tonight. Good evening. My name is Lisa Kale. I would like to provide a brief overview of the history that has brought us before you this evening with a request to allow voters to decide on the future of a children's trust for our community. The seeds for a children's trust were planted long ago as the potential for and barriers to scaling successful local programs came to be understood. Many impactful local programs were being developed and implemented, but still far too few children were being reached. When county funding through the Children's Services Advisory Committee, known as CSAC, was dramatically reduced in 2008 and not increased again until passionate, informed public advocacy in 2017, the community was ready to take a closer look at this issue. 3 years ago, I was engaged by a group of community leaders to help reach a better understanding as to whether there was, in fact, a need for adequate and sustainable funding for children's services in our community, and if so, what solutions might be developed to address our local needs. To that end, an exploratory committee made up primarily of business leaders and funders was formed. This dedicated group of 14 individuals, listed in your materials, met regularly and engaged in robust discussion in order to address the key questions. First, the group reached consensus on the threshold issues that, one, our current funding model did not provide adequate and sustainable funding to meet the needs of our children, and two, that investing in evidence-based resources for children and families would provide measurable returns for our community. Next, the Exploratory Committee reviewed several funding models utilized around the state of Florida. A public panel discussion was held in early 2019 with models representing independent taxing districts, philanthropically supported systems, and what we came to call a hybrid model that creates a dedicated funding stream to children's services with a structure that falls within the local county government. After this thorough review and analysis, it was clear to the Exploratory Committee that the hybrid model was the most appropriate, viable, efficient, and effective option for Indian River County. That model, which takes into account our community's unique funding history and current priorities, is the Children's Trust. Limiting bureaucracy and overhead while building in efficiency, transparency, measurable outcomes, and accountability are some of the values reflected in this model. The Children's Trust was proposed to the County Commission, and at their May 11th meeting, the County Commissioners expressed unanimous support for the Children's Trust initiative to move forward. Because of the unique and local nature of the Children's Trust, the process also requires the approval of a resolution by each of Indian River County's municipalities as we move toward the 2022 ballot referendum. We are here this evening with some background information that we hope will be helpful, along with a request that at a future meeting, Sebastian pass a resolution to be included in the Children's Trust pending voter approval of the referendum in November 2022. I thank you for your time and consideration this evening. Now, Michael Kent, recently retired CEO of United Way, and Meredith Egan, current CEO of the United Way, will lead us through a brief PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Council, Mayor Dodd, Council members, for the chance to speak to you on the importance of the Children's Trust to Sebastian's children and to everyone, all the families of Indian River County. I'm going to be speaking to three areas in particular. First, I'll share some data which will help hopefully to demonstrate the challenges that our county is facing. Next, and it's a bit of a shift in the flow, I'm going to speak to one very specific element of the draft proposal, and that is the millage, because it's the thing that everyone focuses on. So I want to kind of give you some information on what that will be, because the bottom line is, if this goes to the voters, and if it is approved, it is that Children's Trust millage that will support all of the activities for the Children's Trust for the following 12 years. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the return on investment for any of the dollars that Children's Trust can bring to bear in Indian River County. I pushed something here, forward, I guess. Wow. This slide, and it was in the PowerPoint that was sent to you, may help you understand some of the reasons that an enhanced investment in children's services is needed. Now, the data speaks to the challenges that we face, that the challenges to improve the health and well-being of all the kids of Indian River County. There's a lot of data there. I'm going to poke out a couple of these. 14.5% of all babies born in Indian River County are low birth weight. 50% of kids that have developmental delays or other disorders don't get diagnosed before they enter school. That's 5 years of age. More than 50% of the kids entering kindergarten are not kindergarten ready. Over 1,500 reports are received by, Department of Children and Families of abuse in Indian River County every year. And lastly, almost 65% of Florida youth with major depression did not receive any mental health supports throughout 2020. Meredith said, "Are you sure you want to click the slide?" This slide, changing the direction from some of the needs, addresses the current and the proposed millage rates which provide funding for children's services. Now, currently, through CSAC, that Children's Services Advisory Committee, is shown on the left side. The county's dependent millage is at its peak, 0.125. As Lisa shared, it took a large group of people a few years ago to kind of kick them and get them to get the level back to do the best that they could based on the existing statute. You'll see that it's 1/8 of a mil, 0.125, and you'll also see that in the fiscal year 23-24, I'll tell you why I picked that in a second, that fund would generate, if it stays at its peak, $2,395,448. I picked that year because when we go to the next side, other side, the first year of the Children's Trust is going to be that year, so that gives a projection of what we anticipate will be there. Again, the right side is the Children's Trust, and that's not dedicated, that's not a dependent, it is a dedicated millage. If it is approved by the voters, it can only be expensed on Children's Trust to serve the kids. Those dollars cannot be spent by the county in any other way. You'll note that for the first 4 years, the millage is 0.25. In other words, it doubles the 1/8 and goes to 2/8, 1/4. And then for the last 8 years, it goes to 3/8, which is 0.375. On the right, you see that in 23-24, it is projected to generate twice what CSAC can by its statute at $4,790,895. And you can see the other projections. Two other points about the Children's Trust, if it is approved. One, the county's CSAC funding, that 1/8 of a mil, which currently comes out of the general fund. They build that in because those are dollars that you all are paying. And it goes, the language, as I said, is up to, doesn't have to be spent. That's what happened after the Great Recession. They bounced down, and when other departments came back, it took some nudging on some of our part to get it back up. There's no, it's not an absolute. It's not definitely sustainable. So the 1/8, though that's there, will be rescinded. We've been in discussions with them, and the plan is that they will pull that back out of the general fund. So that's going to take that away. Children's Trust supplants CSAC. Number 2, after 12 years, the Children's Trust would require reauthorization to continue. On the next slide, it looks to specifically the projection for homeowners in Sebastian. Now, that number, the median value, is gotten from the U.S. Census Bureau, and it's the median. They don't do averages. It may exist. I heard that someone suggested, and I've got numbers later. If we want to look at them, we can. But based on that report from the department, the U.S. Census Bureau, rather, using that as the average for the moment value, it shows that the median home value in Sebastian is $195,500. Allowing for the standard $50,000 homestead exemption, the median assessed value would be $145,500. And at that evaluation, you can see the cost for the first 4 years at that value, the 0.25 mils would be $36.38. And it also obviously just doubles what the CSAC is doing. And at 3.75, the cost would be $54.57. Changing gears and transitioning back to the need. Keep that there. This slide, cutting to the chase, I want to look at the bottom part, kind of to establish the challenges and the needs in the community. Unfortunately, those things on the bottom half of that slide show where our county is unfortunately higher than state averages, and in this instance, higher is not a better thing. Our foster care rates are higher. Sexual violence is higher. Behavioral health, suicide rate, and mental health hospitalizations is higher. The number of youths arrested is higher, and the poverty rate, as you may know, is also. What are we going to do with the Children's Trust to succeed? These clearly are some of the key areas that dollars will have to be invested in, and dollars are being invested in some of these areas now by CSAC and by United Way and by other funders, but the need is tremendous. Prenatal health, healthy birth, early brain development. If you know anything about early brain development, the science teaches us 0 to 3 are the critical years. That's when all of the brain synapses are being connected. It is a critical time to discover if there are issues and problems with the child and get them fixed if possible, or start working on them as early as possible. Extended day, quality education, and the last one there, behavioral health. The next 2 slides I'm actually going to skip over only because Meredith is going to speak to them, and they've got some data that's specific to Sebastian, which gets us to this slide, and I'm not going to read it to you, but it provides the thoughts of a Nobel Prize winning economist and the CEO of Florida Tax Watch, speaking to the return on investment for spending on children's programs. And along this line, some key points from this slide, still on return on investment. Key point number 1 from Tony Carvajal, who's with the Florida Chamber of Commerce and their foundation. He's been touring the state for over 2 years, talking to city councils, talking to chambers of commerce, talking to anyone who will listen. And one of his core messages is that expanding early learning initiatives is amazingly, significantly important. And one of the data points that he preaches is that there is an $8.60 benefit for every dollar that's invested in a child. Number 2 comment is from James Heckman. Now, he's that Nobel-winning economist I told you about. Check that first phrase that he speaks to. Workforce development starts with early childhood development. Look at that again. Workforce development begins with early childhood development. And the other thing that's relevant to return on investment, high-quality early education programs starting at year 5, or birth to 5, I'm sorry, yields a 13% return on investment per child per year. And at the bottom of that slide, it shares some of the problems that we will see if we don't provide early quality education. Kids are more likely to drop out, become a teen parent. It's more of those numbers that we don't like to sometimes have to face, but we need to. The next slide is called the Heckman Curve. The bottom line on this slide, when it comes to early childhood development, the earlier the investment, the greater the return. I've rushed a bit, and I've skirted a lot of the in-the-weeds aspects of the specifics of how the Children's Trust will work, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. You've got a lot of backup that had a lot of this stuff in it, we know that. But we're here, and we can be here after this meeting if you guys individually would like to meet. I know you have to work in the sunshine. But from our perspective, from the exploratory committees, we're the face, but this has been a wonderful group of businessmen, philanthropists, community leaders working on this. We're convinced that the Children's Trust can be structured and will work. We know a thoughtful and effective and impactful approach to children's services in Indian River County can be created. This slide just lists some of the benefits that your kids and all the families of Indian River will receive. Maybe we should go through the presentation, but if you've got questions, because it looked like some of you might, we can come back to them. Next up, as was said, is the very talented Meredith Egan, who's taken over for me at United Way.
All right, good. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for your time. The funding from the Children's Trust will expand the established programs that are in other parts of our community to serve the children here in Sebastian, and also grow many of the creative, innovative pilot programs and bring them to scale. That's really the key that we want to emphasize. Imagine if every child in Sebastian and across our county had every resource they needed when and where they need it, and they didn't need to travel 40 minutes across the county to get those services. Raising healthy children may well be our society's most challenging and critical job. This type of change cannot be done on a small scale. We are making incremental impact, but we need to make a systems-level change like the Children's Trust. Just an analysis of the programs that CSAC already funds, not the dozens of other child-serving organizations in our county, reveals that there are about 4,000 children on those wait lists, to the tune of the cost of about $8.5 million, just to clear those wait lists. But the true change in children happens when we scale all of these high-quality programs that we know already work. Instead of wasting our money on programs that are obsolete or ineffective, the Children's Trust will seek out creative, results-oriented programs and help them replicate their efforts across the county. There are two types of scale that we're talking about here: small to bigger and big to better. And if the program is ineffective, it goes by the wayside. Just take the high-quality learning on this slide. If there are 7,200 children in our county that are preschool aged, before they ever enter the public school system, and only 2,000 of them are currently served by quality early childhood programs, the differential is enormous, and the early learning loss and the opportunity for growth is stifled before the child even shows up on that first day of school. We know that Sebastian is rapidly growing and poverty everywhere continues to climb, which means there are many young working families with children who keep our local economies going. It is imperative to ensure that these families are fully prepared for success, or else we all will feel the effects. The current $2.3 million for children's services that was approved earlier this month for the 29 different organizations across 42 programs, many of which specifically target this community. A look at the demographics of the children served by the current CSAC programs, so again, those 42 programs, shows that approximately 33 million, oh my goodness, just all sorts of numbers, 3,000 children that are Sebastian children were served by CSAC programs last year. Now, you must say, okay, well, we've got 4,100 kids in our community. So that is a duplicated number. That's a good thing in this case. A duplicated number could mean that the child may have a Big Brothers and Big Sisters volunteer tutor, their mom may be enrolled in a health-focused parenting program, they may go to Boys and Girls Club in the afternoon and attend summer camp at the Environmental Learning Center. It's about meeting the needs of the whole child and the entire family with best practice, culturally appropriate services right here in their neighborhood. That's what the Children's Trust will expand upon and seek to provide innovative solutions to the specific needs of each and every child in our community. Children may make up only 16% of Sebastian's population, but they represent 100% of the future. Yet they have no voice because they cannot yet vote. A dedicated funding source helps ensure a stable, reoccurring source of dollars to prepare these children and Sebastian for success. Please allow the voters to decide on the future of the Children's Trust in our community. Next, we have the Clerk of the Court, Jeff Smith, who just wants to make a few comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm going to switch gears and address the accountability portion of what the Children's Trust will be and why we picked the type of organization structure that we did. We picked the hybrid method so that my office, I'm a CPA, but I'm also the clerk of the court and I'm also the comptroller for Indian River County. So that means I have an internal audit department. And using the hybrid method that we've selected allows my office to do the accountability studies, to review the outcomes, to audit the expenses and make sure they're of the agencies that are funded, to make sure that they're spending the money on children's programs. If we didn't pick this structure, then we'd have to have an outside auditing firm to do that. That would take money away from the kids. So that's the reason why we picked that one. My office is experienced. We're ready to go with these reviews and these audits once and if the voters recommend that we go this route. The other thing is, as the clerk of the court, I can tell you firsthand how expensive it is if law enforcement, social programs, and the government have to get involved and intervene in children's lives later in their life, in the teen years and as they become young adults. If we intervene early in their development, the return to the taxpayers is phenomenal. We can prevent, I can tell you that criminal or juvenile justice and juvenile delinquency rates are going up in this county. Kids are getting arrested, doing things that heretofore were only adults, but because of lack of intervention early in their lives, now we're having to address that from the legal side, from the court side, and from social services, and it gets more expensive as the kids get older. So that's my point, and I appreciate again you all letting us come and speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys done? Okay. A housekeeping point. We actually have this on our agenda later on this evening to discuss. So we're not going to wait till a future meeting. We're going to discuss it this evening. And I think at that time, the council members can input it when we do that, and we'll have opportunity then to also allow public input on it. So I thank you for your presentation. It was very well done. The problems are definitely there, and I think later on when we get to that point, we can discuss it. I'm glad you volunteered to come back because I have a feeling you're going to have to. So, very good. Okay. You guys ready to move on then, and we'll get to it later? All right.
Sir.
Thank you. Anyone have? No? Okay. We're now to the public input section of the agenda. So anyone from the public that has something they'd like to say that does not involve an agenda item can come forward, please. Anyone? Bill, how you doing?
Good evening. Bill Simmons, Trotty Way here in Sebastian. I just have a question on one of the issues that started out on the last meeting agenda. I would assume that some of you guys have an idea what's going to be on the agenda prior to it being completed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would have thought the issue related to the American Rescue Plan that was brought up, or that was intended to be brought up last week, would have not even made the agenda. So that's all I got to say about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything I'd like to bring forward? Okay, yes.
Good evening, gentlemen, council members, Mr. Mayor, John Cristino, Sebastian. I wasn't able to attend the last council meeting, but I did watch it. I was a little concerned. It was described as vague on the council agenda, and if you read it, perhaps it might be interpreted that way. No one had any idea in the city that we planned on handing out large bonuses, or that this money was already decided how we were going to spend it. I think we were anticipating the word discussion on the agenda. We're not going to talk about this tonight, so I can talk about this, correct? We paid a 12.5% tax increase last year. And we did that so our city employees could get 2% last year in a difficult year. The residents had a difficult year too. I think I'd like to see some of that money go to much needed projects throughout the city. Our drainage is far from relegated to 2 areas. We got dozens of areas that flood. We got a lot of neighborhoods that have had a tough time. So I would like to have that workshop scheduled. I know Councilmember McPartlin has his ideas. I'm sure as many of you do. And as residents, we'll probably come up with 50 ideas, but we should hammer those out. And I'd like to see that scheduled as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to come forward?
I would just suggest that those comments were full hackery, if you would want my opinion, because the city council does not set the agenda. The agenda is set by the city manager, and discussion on any of the items that are on the city agenda are to be discussed at the meetings. Full hackery.
Sir.
My name is Ryan Blade. I'm a resident here in the city of Sebastian. The grant money, I just want to let this council know, I do support you guys using it for any infrastructure projects here in town. From what I've been hearing, there are quite a few infrastructure projects that could probably use some funding, most notably the Krabby Bill's building, which is a very important historic building here in town. So I just want to let this council know you do have my support as a citizen to use those grant monies for those projects. And 2, if you were to be, say, giving these part of that money as bonuses to citizens, if that were to come back up sometime down the road, you may want to point out if there were any other bonuses that were given, say, from the federal government, state government, say to our law enforcement, any of the city staff, that might help your case if there were not any bonuses given out prior to. That's just something I want to point out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is anyone else who wants to come forward? Go ahead. I'm going to address that.
My name is Bill Flynn. I live in Sebastian. I've been talking to a number of the residents, and I haven't heard anybody that was supporting bonuses across the board. What I have heard support is return any of the sick leave or vacation time used for COVID. Like the other speaker said, we have so many issues in town, and we know that inflation is probably going to come, and we don't know what's going to happen with the city finances in the future. So I feel that it's more important to focus on those immediate needs. Like they said, Krabby, the working waterfront looks like a tenement, and then we got the Roche Motel that we got to tear down, and we have other drainage issues that we need to be addressed. So a workshop is really necessary so we can direct those funds most needed for the city. And I don't think there was any backroom deals or anything like that. I think it was just something that was taken out of turn, and I think the council that we have now, we can address the needs of the voters and listen to what the voters, so we don't have the same thing that we did with the annex. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I am Clint Phipps. I support a workshop to decide what the grant money is going to be used for. I think that would be the best interest of the citizens of Sebastian. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? I only see 2 people on Zoom, and they're employees, so I doubt if they have anything to say. So, is anyone that you can see with their hand raised?
Nobody's raised their hand.
Okay. All right. I am going to address that very quickly. That issue was blown way out of proportion. What the city manager did in that last agenda was provide a beginning document so we could discuss what we were going to do with that money. There was not a final proposal. It wasn't anything like that. Social media is going bonkers over this, and it's ridiculous. It reminds me of what it was like in the summer of 2019 about the annexation and the bad information that was put out about that. So please understand what you're talking about before you post this stuff on social media. It's destructive. That was a city manager providing the council information about input about things that he was proposing that we look at to do with that money. There was not a final document. It was not anything. It was a misnomer on his part to publish that on the agenda with the dollars in it, because but he just felt like he was giving us information, basically. Just so everybody knows, there's nothing final there. There's nothing going on. There's nobody trying to kite money on the part of the city staff to reward them. And I think it's disingenuous to our staff to be publicly talking about things like bonuses as though we don't think they're worth it. I'm not saying they're going to get it, but it's disingenuous to do that. And I'd like for people to be very careful about how they address that. We are going to have a workshop, but we're not going to do anything with that until after the budget's finalized. And at that point in time, the council will talk about scheduling some form of a public input workshop to discuss that issue. And we're going to spend that money as wisely as possible. I know, and I believe everybody else up here knows, you don't buy groceries with a credit card. It's not a smart thing to do. Okay, so we're going to use that money when we know we're going to have something on the final side of that to show for it. It's going to be used properly. So I think everybody should kind of put that to rest and quit trying to use that during this political season to go after council people, because that's exactly what's going on. Okay, no, you can't talk twice. Okay, so let's go on to the consent agenda. Council, what's your pleasure on that?
I'd move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second, and there is, we do have to roll call on that, please.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn.
Yes.
Mayor Dodd.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, planning and zoning, this is item number 9A. It's an open alternate position on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have one position that's open, and we have one individual, Karen Jordan. Is Karen Jordan here?
Yes,
sir. She's coming forward, okay. If anyone would like to ask her some questions.
I do.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Jordan.
I'd like to second that.
Okay.
Good evening, Karen Jordan. My question?
Would you got to talk into the microphone. No, it won't go away. Just talk to us.
What do you want me to say?
Okay. Actually, you've been nominated, and I don't hear any additional nominations. So
I don't understand why there's not any more nominations. I would like to make a motion that there be at least 3 people.
Well,
because you can't pick wisely. You don't know me from Adam.
Right. Well, I know you volunteered, and I spent 12 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I don't think they knew me. And I think it was Jim Hill who nominated me years ago, first time maybe. So we're gonna
question, Mr. Mayor.
We have yet to have a problem with people.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say Ms. Jordan is incorrect. She was a proud committee member on our Charter Review Committee, so we do know her work.
And I watched every meeting, and I think you did an exceptional job on that committee.
You didn't hear me. Well, thank you.
So
What
by
questions
unanimous
do you have?
consent, you are now an alternate member on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Very good,
I had a
thank you.
question, Mayor.
Yes.
For Ms. Jordan. I know that you have been attending the planning and zoning, and you were not, were you aware that you have to attend all the meetings?
I do have to attend all the meetings, yes, I'm
Yes.
aware of that.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. And so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Service well.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
volunteering.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, let's go to 9B. This pertains to the county's exercise at redistricting. And Mr. Anand, would you like to open this? Did you put this on the agenda? All right, Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, member of council. So because of the new census, the county is required to look at the census tract and try to balance those census tracts out as much as possible. And I think it would be beneficial if we had a representative from city council attend those meetings when appropriate, just to, kind of give their input and their thought process and be part of the process so that we know that the city of Sebastian was, well considered in that. Not that we wouldn't be, but I think it's important we have a representative from city council attend those mapping meetings.
I'd move to appoint Mayor Dodd to serve us on that council to make sure we keep those rascals down at the county in line.
Yeah.
And keep our representation where it needs to be.
I second that.
Okay. I'll try not to be too hard on him.
Would you want to consider?
Unless Mr. Jones wants to volunteer as well.
No, I think he'll have Mr. Carlisle and our city attorney there with him too. So
Yeah.
we're fine.
We will be present.
Yes. So, okay. I'm the horror stories we hear about redistricting, I'm just not sure we're going to have those here, but, so we probably shouldn't get too excited, but we'll see what happens. So thank you, guys. Thank you for that. Okay, now we're on to, there's no public hearings, there's no
Mr. Mayor?
unfinished business.
Do we need to
I only
vote
heard
on
first
that?
and a second.
No, I don't think we have
A
to
vote
vote
in
on
a
that.
second? Do we need? No?
No, you do not.
Okay.
Consensus?
We can do that by unanimous consent.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we're now on to 12A, which is a discussion on the Children's Council, Children's Trust of Indian River County. And I'll start off. I've read all this. I got a really good document in my box about a week ago. I'm not sure who gave it to me. It was in a blue folder and it had a lot more details than what was in here, which was really nice. There? Okay. I'm glad you gave me. That was a good document. It really did that. Okay. I personally find, I guess I'm taken aback. Everything that they're talking about doing is stuff that certainly needs to be done. I'm not sure I don't understand or do understand why some of that's not being done by existing agencies. Why is the school board not trying to do more with pre-K education? My grandkids both went to a pre-K school that was designed just to teach them how to go to kindergarten. And it worked great. I mean, they knew how to march in a line straight when they got to kindergarten. They knew all of those things. And I just don't understand why some of that's not being done, but apparently it's not being done. So I agree that these agencies need to be involved, and you certainly can come forward.
So I'll just specifically to that, it's just not being done to scale, to some of my comments. There is a pre-kindergarten program that we call Step Into Kindergarten that happens during the summer. It's kind of an abbreviated version, but there's only so many slots because of the funding that's available.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's very competitive to get in. You got to sign up 6 months before, and we know that a lot of the families, it's just not a priority 6 months before summer, before they enter kindergarten to get to it. So it's just bringing it all to scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Okay, so I agree with that. So I think it's important. I do have a lot of questions, and they're the kind of things that a policy wonk like me will ask, but they're not pertinent tonight because I think what we need to do is to schedule a public workshop. I think for us to ask our citizens to allow us to say yes to a millage increase on them, we need to give them an opportunity in a public workshop setting to actually discuss that and invite you guys back to make your presentation and to do that. Now, I will tell you, sometimes those things fail miserably and nobody shows up. It's just something we have to deal with when it happens, but I would like to open it up to a public workshop for that purpose. My questions are things like, in the one document, the county has, I believe, an 8% cap on how much they're going to spend to support this. Is there an administrative cap on the other side for the organization that actually does that? And those are the kind of questions that, yeah, if you'd like to come up and answer that.
In the draft ordinance, and that's all that it is.
Yes.
At this juncture.
Right.
The 8% cap is on the Children's Trust, all admin, all overhead.
Okay.
Which would include, obviously, the executive director that speaks to that. There'll probably be a couple of other staff for the program, but all overhead has to be 8% or under. And we've worked a lot of numbers, obviously. We've been at this for over 2.5 years. We'll be nowhere near 8%, at least in the early years of this. So that 8% is against the actual millage that comes out of the Children's Trust to hold down the overhead of its operations, so that at least 92% is going to children's program services.
Well, see, and once again, I don't, this isn't, we have time to deal with this, but it says to provide for administrative expenses limited to Indian River County staff.
Because, then
it says is limited to not more than 8% of the annual millage. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't reference that that's a cap on the whole trust. It references that as a cap on Indian River County.
In essence, the way that this hybrid model works is the CSAC, which is run through part-time staff, actually out of the health department under the county's auspices. This takes that program into a much more robust way, so this almost becomes a children's services department of the county. These are going to be county employees. Now, there's other language there that speaks to the advisory board, and I know the kind of wonky questions you might have. We'll take all the time that we need to answer them, but if that wasn't clear, this establishes within the county the children's services, but all the funding for it, any dollars that go to it, are provided through that millage that the public would need to approve, and it is capped at 8%. But it's also one of the reasons, as Jeff said, Jeff can provide auditing services to us at no charge. And the fact is, Dylan Reingold, the county attorney, could handle legal matters that wouldn't, so because we've become embedded in the county, there are some cost-saving advantages to being there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I?
Yes.
For full disclosure, Bob McParland, I'm the administrator for the Department of Children and Families for the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee counties. With these fine group of people, I've gone with them to several other cities to talk about the problems that are going on. I also sit in the Martin County Children's Services Council, the Okeechobee County Children's Services Council. I've been sitting for the past 8 years on the Indian River County Children's Services Advisory Committee. I was a member when it was way down at $600,000, when the community came forward several years ago, and we went to the county commission because they were not funding that full millage percent. And they challenged the community, if you come up with $250,000, we'll match that $250,000. The community came up with that in probably 2 days, and they did that. And Jason Brown has been committed to funding that one millage rate. Now also, the CSAC, we have a lot of needs in the community. Like I said, as I oversee the department, I oversee adult abuse investigations, child abuse investigations, and the food stamp Medicaid portion. Our 4 counties receives about 6,000 child abuse reports each and every year. When we get a report, we're reactionary. We're reacting to a problem that's out there in the community. What this Children's Trust could do is be a game changer for this county and change things where it's preventative so those issues don't happen. When we get a report and some of these families have so many issues going on, I hate to say that they're too far from being fixed, but they're well on their way and it costs a lot more money. Also, so I cover the 4 counties. 50% of the abuse reports that the department receives is from St. Lucie County. So that also means that 50% of the kids that get removed in the 4 counties should come out of St. Lucie County. But over the past year, Indian River County has had more children removed than St. Lucie County. I know we like to beat St. Lucie County all the time, but that is an area we do not need to be beating them in, and that is just horrible. Drugs are ravaging this county. This city here, in a conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce, we had an opioid meeting here, a presentation several years ago. It's still on the videos. And those drug problems are the same. All they're coming before to do is to get a resolution from the city here to place it on the ballot. They're going to be doing a whole bunch of work after they get the resolutions from all the cities, which I hope they do, and then they'll have public workshops because they're going to do advertisement because we want to see this funded. Also, all those Children's Services Council, Martin, Okeechobee, and St. Lucie County, they came up for reauthorization a few years ago, and I believe they were voted back in at over 80%, I believe was the number, which is because these programs are needed. This is where it has to happen. This would be a game changer. The other thing, by establishing the Children's Trust, we could utilize that to go out and leverage federal dollars that are out there. So this money here, this could be just a small thing. This is what's happened in St. Lucie County, where they started a gang initiative program, which currently is looked at as a national program to be modeled after, because they were able to use their dollars to leverage out and go get, and I believe it's about $1.5 million in funding that we received from the feds for that program. And that has suppressed gang activity in the Fort Pierce area, as well as in the Gifford community, because a lot of the shootings that were happening in Gifford were a result of the gang violence coming out of Fort Pierce. So I had to speak to Manny earlier because they're looking through something. There might be a conflict, but this is something I can speak to you as not just the Department of Children and Families, but as a resident of Sebastian, that this is much needed and beneficial for the whole community.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Let me get my mic on. I want to, first of all, thank you guys for your hard work and the commitment you guys have to our children and the volunteer work that you put into, everything it is to take care of children. Obviously, the investment in children is paramount to the future of Indian River County. I would suggest that the nudging that you talked about on the county commission to get those funds would probably be in the form of better leadership. But I will leave that to a different discussion. The investment that we would have in our children is, like I said, extremely important. And what we're being asked to do is not to say that we want to levy a millage on the citizens of Sebastian. It's not saying at all that we support you passing this. All we're saying is that we support the ability for this to be open for discussion, and there will be an ample amount of discussion that takes place up until the 2022 election. I'm certain we're going to have campaigns on both sides describing the benefits and the downfalls of passing such a millage. I have no doubt about that. The political part of this is going to take place later. I don't think it's now that the political part should take place. I think the citizens of Sebastian should have a right to determine whether or not this is a millage that is placed on them. I'm in favor of going forward and allowing this to happen. I don't know that we need a workshop, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, we've seen how workshops work. But if we have this on an agenda item, then that would give everyone in the community an ample opportunity to come in and have discussions or get the questions that they may have answered. I don't think this is something that we as a city council should get too politically involved in, because I think there are sides out there who will do that. And there's going to be a lot of money spent educating the public on the benefits and the downfalls of what's going to be on the ballot. So I have no problems passing this resolution as it'll be presented to us. And I think that any of the questions that we may have can be ironed out at a regular council meeting under the discussion item for the resolution.
Councilmember, do you have any questions? No? Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm all for the children's and this program. I myself would not want to vote for any resolution right now because our citizens have not had input on this. And until that happens, I'll leave it open. So I want our citizens to voice their opinion to us about what they really want. So when that happens, we'll go on from there.
Right, so I do have a question for you, Mr. Jones, then. If there were a meeting that had the resolution on it and you had public input where people could get up and voice their concerns or objections or positive comments on it, would that not be sufficient?
Yes, as long as it's advertised in advance and our citizens know, they have the opportunity to know that this is going to be on the agenda and this is a meeting night that is going to be there. Everyone that wants to speak should be here to speak about it, and then we can make our decision from that point.
I agree.
But as long as they have the knowledge that we're going to have this on whatever that meeting night is, that if they have any opposition or plus for it, then to come in and speak to us about it, so.
And just to follow up on that, that's been the process that the group has gone through with the other municipalities. We do a presentation, answer questions, and then come back at a later date for it to be an agenda-sized item so other people can have input.
Okay.
I apologize. I do have, so to make it clear for anybody wondering why one person is saying a workshop and the other is not, this is not us tonight deciding a resolution that we agree there should be a millage increase for our citizens. What this is an open discussion to bring an agenda item before our city council to discuss a possible millage increase put on the ballot for the citizens to decide. At this point, we're just discussing, are we going to put this on the agenda for us to have a real discussion and a vote for it? And I'm for that, without a workshop.
Okay.
At this point.
Mr. City Attorney, how long would it take for you to draft the resolution or the ordinance
done
for us to vote on?
I already have a sample, Mr. Mayor, draft with the presentations, so it's just a matter of removing that watermark and making any other changes you guys might recommend.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from the council is that there's a consensus that we should agendize this with the actual ordinance that we're going to vote on at our next meeting. No?
No.
No.
Excuse me? No? Not the next meeting?
No.
What meeting would you like, Mr. Jones?
It would probably be the 25th meeting of August.
Is there anything you know of that's going to hit us on the 25th that won't?
No, I don't have anything that's going to be paramount that would hinder that.
So
August 10th is going to be a very challenging meeting to get a lot of stuff on, so the 25th would work better.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So we'll put this on the agenda for the 25th with the actual ordinance that we will approve instead of a watermark thing like this. Because what's in here is the county's ordinance and so forth. And
Yeah, I think Felsner's is in there as well.
yeah, and you have a big legal staff. They write big ordinances. So.
Well, we just like to cover all our bases.
I know. Lawyers get paid by the page, I understand. So is
Thank you
that
for your
now,
consideration.
what we'll do is, Mr. Carlisle will notify you guys and set it up for you to be here. I don't know that you need to go through the full presentation, but at least you can be here to answer questions.
We'll be ready and happy to do so. And just to, this has now, I think, been clarified, but we are fully, anticipating and looking forward to the time when we are very proactively out in the community, engaging in lots of education workshops. We've already made arrangements to speak at the Taxpayers Association luncheon and other, groups like that. And so that's a step we're looking forward to. But we'll happily come back here next month and answer any questions that come up then as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can, City Attorney, just
Yes.
for clarity, it's a resolution, not an ordinance.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's a resolution on ordinance, so that's, thank you for that. All right.
As that was an agenda item, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if we need public input on that.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address that issue? The one we just talked about? Yes.
Ray Mello, Sebastian. So just to verify, it's not an ordinance. It's not going to be a law. You're just doing a resolution.
It's a resolution, yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they said ordinance.
Yeah, I know. That was my mistake. I said ordinance. Because I looked down and saw ordinance on the paper here. So, yeah. So, anybody else? The public? Okay, council, we're now on to Mr. Kilgore and the set the proposed millage rate for fiscal year 21 and 22. Thank you, guys.
Good evening. Okay, we'll focus tonight only on the general fund because that's where the millage goes to support the expenditures. The Budget Committee's been through the entire draft budget, which includes all the other funds, but like I am saying, that we just need to focus on general fund and the needs to cover the proposed expenditures for next year. Our draft at this point has 3 positions added to general fund. We've also provided a 3% contingency for wage increases, and that's still under negotiations and it's yet to be settled. We had 1 meeting with the bargaining units, but that'll be settled at a future time, but we do have the 3% set aside. As far as the increase in the operating accounts, it was only about $90,000 higher than we currently spend on operating, and most of that was the cost of the election that we needed to cover the increase. When you look at the current amended budget, next year's draft would only be 1.6% higher than this year's budget. That is kind of misleading because we had added to the budget over $300,000 for the yacht club expenditures. So if you take that out of the equation, really the increase is about 4.6%. We have drafted the budget assuming a 3.0043 rate, which is the rollback. In that draft, we're $108,000 short of balancing the general fund budget. We're still working on that. We've had some pretty good news this week, actually, on our state revenue sharing funds, but we are confident that we'll reach that. What am I doing here? That we'll be able to reach rollback if nothing extraordinary happens. Assuming we go with the rollback rate of the 3.0043, a $200,000 homesteaded property would actually have a tax decrease of about $16. If we should go to the same rate as the current year, which is a 3.1514, that $200,000 homestead property would increase about $6. With a non-homestead property, the rollback would actually be an increase of $31 per year, and a millage of 3.1514 would be an increase of $63. We've already cranked in, assuming the rollback rate, and so therefore the additional revenue added by the additions to the tax roll this last year is $95,000. That's already in the numbers. If we ended up adopting the 3.154, the same millage as this year, that would add $226,000. So that would definitely make the deficit, or the shortfall right now in the draft, go away. The Budget Committee, as we've done in past years, is suggesting that, and actually voted to set the proposed millage at 3.1514, which is the same rate as this year. We have done that in the past so that when we come to the public hearings and finally adopt a millage, if nothing extraordinary has happened, that we can be in a position to adjust the millage up to that 3.154 rate. we fully expect we can drop it down to rollback rate, as I say, if something extraordinary doesn't happen. But this is always a precaution that we've taken most years anyway. It does go through the trim process. It'll be advertised as a 4.9% tax increase at the 3.1514. If anybody even pays attention to those tax notices and can understand them at least. If we went with the rollback rate or anything less, we would have to actually notify every taxpayer by first-class mail and incur the expense of letting them know that we are going with a rate higher than proposed. So there again, we highly recommend that we go with the 3.1514. And I'm, of course, willing to address any questions.
I don't have any questions. This would be standard procedure for us to put on the trim notice the higher dollar amount. And because we don't know what could happen between now and when we do actually set the final millage rate, and it gives us an opportunity to set the final millage rate at anywhere between rollback and last year's rate if we have to do that. And right now, I know they're battling that $100,000 problem on the budget, and I'm sure they're going to try to do what they can to get through that, but I wouldn't want to tie the city's hands by trying to approve something lower than what we might have to do. So I would propose, yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The one question, it's not really a question but a comment, we saw on the last presentation that there was the mean home value was 195 or something like that. Now it's 200,000, which is just, try to find a house in Sebastian in those numbers is not going to happen. But anyway, I agree 100%, and therefore I would move to set the proposed millage rate at 3.1514 and direct city manager to execute and transmit the required forms.
Second.
And thank you very much, Ken. You do a great job for us.
All right. Motion and a second. Thank you, Ken. Is there anyone from the public that would like to discuss this?
Bill Simmons. You guys are lucky. You get me twice.
I'm sorry?
I just had a couple of comments here and I understand about the potential for a rollback. But I would think perhaps if there was a bit of a shortfall, that somewhere in the expenses, on the expense side, there would be some coverage perhaps by this American Rescue Plan. Surely there must be something in the budget that...
The American Rescue Plan does not allow you to make up general operating deficits. Okay. So you can't use funds from the American Rescue Plan to make up for budget deficits.
So there's nothing in the budget.
There are certain things you can spend it on, but you can't. It's not legal for a city or county or anyone else to say, well, I've got a $500,000 deficit in my budget, so I'm going to take $500,000 of that and roll it in. It's not legal. You can't do that.
Even though it was for a specific item.
Well, I mean, you can play games, but I mean, we can't make up for a budget shortfall with that money.
Okay.
That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah.
All right. Then, and I know in the past, if there's been a project or a pet project that needed to be funded, somehow we always had money in the discretionary sales tax, so maybe we'll find it there this time. And anyhow, I would, as you say, hope to keep it with a rollback, so that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Gentlemen, John Castino again. Question for Mr. Kilgore. I'm sure it's already in there. City's tax base grew by 32 million, approximately. Our taxable base.
Mr. Kilgore, do you know that? Could you?
Yes. This can wait if he doesn't have it ready. Yeah, I know we grew. We're building like crazy out here, so.
Yeah, in 2021, it was 32,716. In 2020, it was 33,685. Those levels are higher than it was
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
going back until like 2017, when it was almost 36 million.
Okay.
So
The only other question I
rate of
have,
growth.
do you have an approximate on how much more that's contributed to the tax coffers? to the
Mayor,
city?
I would ask that Mr. Cristino.
You maybe do it.
Address the council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
thank you.
Let's don't get.
This could take, I don't want to ask too many questions. Just wondering how much that would contribute to $32 million at our current mill rate.
Yeah. Well, they've done the calculations. That's the numbers he gave us, the millage numbers he gave us are based on the information that goes into the budget process,
No,
which
no.
is all of that things in
I know it's
combined.
complicated, and the budget's
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
extensive. Just my question is, we've got a $32 million increase in taxable base, and we're $108,000 short.
We didn't get a $32 million increase.
I meant in taxable
Okay.
base.
So-
In other words, property that's taxed and pays.
But we did, that was, the taxable property was not increased by $32 million.
The value of the property is $32 million.
Yeah. Mr. Carlisle.
So the difference between last year and this year, net revenue to the city, because the tax base was $95,000.
Yes.
Is the additional revenue the city received, which was in the slide.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
there.
All right, so that's
So,
it,
yeah.
small amount.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Anybody else have any questions?
Ryan Blay again. This is just a simple one.
Could you move a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Ryan Blade again. I just want to let you guys know, if you can, I understand there's circumstances varying the like. As a fiscal conservative, I support obviously taxes being lower, and if there is a way to perhaps lower taxes, I would hope that there was a way that this council could do it. If not, not a big deal, but it's just something I wanted to come up here and express. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone on Zoom? I don't see any hands up here.
Nobody has their hand raised.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to set the millage rate at the 3.1514 for the term notice. Any council member have any comments? Questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do.
Yeah.
As we move forward with this, we're obviously approving the same rate, the same tax rate as we had last year. We're not raising the tax rate. The taxes do go up a little bit because of property values and things like that. We still wish and hope that we will be able to roll it back to a lower tax rate than last year, which is the 3.0043. So we don't disagree that we don't want to raise taxes.
Correct.
And to be clear, we're not, even if we went with the same tax rate as last year, we're not raising the tax rate. I do understand that still takes a small amount of money out of people's pockets, and that's upsetting for people that are on, challenged budgets or static budgets. And we're doing our best. Mr. Kilgore and his team are doing their best to try to find the money other ways within the budget so that we can roll it back. But even with the rollback rate, there's still going to be a small increase because of taxable value. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? We don't need a roll call on this. Let's have a voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. 5-4. We have 9 council members now. Could you handle that?
No. I'll do my best, sir.
Okay, we're on to item C, Resolution R2113, Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant Agreement.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is the grant from FAA for the taxiway A and the shade hangar, proposed shade hangar area on the west side of the airport. It is the second of a third phase project, and we would like council to consider approving the resolution and the FFA grant in the amount of $614,422. I can answer any specific questions you may have, hopefully.
Mayor,
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I'll just say that this is an outstanding job again by Mr. Baker, Mr. Carlisle. just a huge $682,691 project that was stated. However, it should be noted that only 5% of the funds have to come from the city to make that happen. So the city does an outstanding job. This is a good job by Mr. Carlisle, being fiscally responsible as always. Scott Baker out at the airport, great job bringing the funds into the airport with minimal output from the city of Sebastian. Our total expenditure for the $682,691 will be $34,134. So that is great use of that $34,000. Thank you, sir. Therefore, I recommend approval.
I will second that for discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Would you like to discuss?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So when I first read this, I thought back, I'm like, hey, didn't we approve something like this earlier, some other time? And so I started doing my research, and I was like, well, it was back in March that we approved one, but it was a different one than this one. It was R2105. Correct, Mr. Carlisle?
Correct.
And so based on that, you know, it looked the same to me, like it's the same thing. And I'm sure other people may have looked at it and thought it was the same thing as well. So we're not approving the same thing that we already approved in March. So would you please give us a brief explanation as to the difference between the two of these?
Absolutely. So let's go back in chronological, and I thank Mr. Baker for putting this in place and giving me these answers, because he's very sharp on this. So our first phase was about $277,000 for the construction that we awarded to the trucking company to do the fencing, the parking lot, the entrance gates on the very western portion of this project, and to bring power into the project. And that was an 80-20 grant from FDOT, and we were paying 20, they're paying 80. The last grant was the FDOT's 5% grant for the taxiway A improvements, and this is the other 90%, and the other is the 5% that we have to pay. So the $614,422 is the 90% of phase 2, which is the the taxiway construction, the parking lot, and the access into the hangars. And the one that we had passed in May was DOT's 5%, which was it was originally $24,688, and they increased it to $36,522. So it looks like it's the same. It is part of the same project. It's just this is the larger section of the project funded by FAA, the 90% section. And then we have phase 3, which is the construction of the 2 square hangars that the city will own, and that's designated funding probably in November for about $720,000. Which is an 80-20 grant from Florida Department of Transportation.
And that will come to us in November.
That is anticipated to come to us in November.
Yes. So it's a stepwise process. Basically,
Right.
you're doing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then you're going to get to build the shade hangars, which they can lease.
Yeah, well, so phase 3 builds the shade hangar. So phase 1 was the design and the western access to it, the power. This one is the construction of the pavement, the taxiway, and the parking lots. And this is the 90%. This is the big money.
So this would be the taxiway from those shade hangars out to the runway.
Airport, right, out to the runway.
Yeah. And just because I heard this discussion, I think during the Budget Review Committee, the reason that we're using discretionary sales tax funds for the 5% matching on this is that this is an infrastructure project. They don't lease that taxiway. They don't generate revenue off that taxiway. So the city's paying that because the city's building infrastructure. When we actually build the shade hangars, then the matching funds that the city advances to that will ultimately be reimbursed to the city over time as they generate revenue off those shade hangars. Right? Is that correct?
So the current policy is any DST infrastructure funds that are submitted into the airport that in turn gets a return on its investment of rental, then that rental money goes to pay back the DST funds that were used to create that seed. Infrastructure is the seed money to make those other rental opportunities available. So we're working on to make the airport sustainable, we have to uphold it. And we've been doing that with a lot of grant money. I mean, I think we're up to like $15 million in the last 5 years.
Yeah, the airport's a great asset to the city, and we need to do what we can do with that. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this?
Two questions I have. Is that done by the same trucking company?
Yeah, talk into the mic if you would, please. You can look up here. What?
Is it done by the same trucking company on both the first, I guess, the first phase and the second? And then the other question I had, is that coming, where's the money coming out of? Is it the general fund in the budget?
Okay, you're talking
It's
about
already budgeted
this
for
$34,000?
This one here on the upcoming,
Which one? I'm sorry.
the 614?
Yes, this one.
Okay, that amount is actually coming from a grant from the Federal
Right,
Aviation
I know, but
Administration.
our percentage,
Our percentage, which is $34,134, is actually coming from our discretionary sales tax fund.
the sales tax?
Yes, the discretionary sales tax fund.
And then on the other question with is it awarded, is it under a bid, or is it just awarded to that one trucking company?
It has not been bid yet.
It's not been bid yet.
Can't bid out what we don't have the funds to pay, to do.
Yeah. Once we grant the funds, then they can go out for a bid.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Any more questions? Anyone else from the public like to speak? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill?
Yes.
And Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, city attorney matters.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
City manager matters.
I have one item. September 26th is our legislative delegation day for the state, our state legislators. So I would encourage you as council members to give me ideas and thoughts to put down as our legislative priorities so that we can present that before Representative Grahl and Senator Mayfield on the 26th. So give it some thought and get with me, and I will try to draft it and bring it to council prior to the 26th for your approval to present to our representatives.
Okay.
That's all I have.
City clerk matters. All right, Councilmember Jones, you're first.
Nothing, sir.
Okay, Councilmember McPartlin.
No, sir.
Councilmember Nunn.
Yes, how are we doing? So just as an interesting note, the city of Jacksonville has 19 city council members. They spend 2 to 3 days having council meetings. Be thankful for 5 city council members.
And also be very thankful that we don't have the problems that Jacksonville has.
Right.
Okay, it's my turn. If anybody's been watching the news, and I don't really care what channel you watch, it's pretty evident that Florida is now the center, the actual epicenter of the earthquake that is known as COVID-19. The hospitals in Florida are being inundated. And I don't understand why it's a political issue, so please get vaccinated if you haven't been vaccinated. 99.3% of the new COVID cases in the country are unvaccinated people. It's beginning to impact children. Arkansas Children's Hospital in Little Rock, which is an extremely large children's hospital, has no more room. They have so many children with COVID, 50% of them are on ventilators.
Wow.
The interesting fact is that the majority of those children's parents were not vaccinated. Get over this political thing and get vaccinated. It's the only way we're going to stop this thing, is to have everybody get vaccinated. That's all. Councilmember Hill.
And I would suggest that that is the opinion of not necessarily the city council, Sebastian. So let's just start with that one. I want to thank our staff for all the work you guys do. You're amazing. You guys have been doing a good job. Obviously, the season's getting ready to start. It's cranking up pretty good here. For the citizens out there, I would ask that you do your research on the statements that you hear out there, because there's a lot of BS being spewed on social media. And, you know, the people we want working for the city of Sebastian should love the city of Sebastian. So keep that in mind when we move forward. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if there's nothing for the good of the order, we are adjourned.
Thank you, sir.